Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking about this relatively new feature within the Power BI service of being able to edit your data model. But we're going to be looking at this feature through kind of the lens of the Power BI bandwagon, as it were. All right, so what is the Power BI bandwagon? Well, so with Power BI Bandwagon, Microsoft's constantly releasing features, functionality for Power BI, both in desktop and in the service. And every month or so, right, it seems like, the community or a group of people kind of glom onto one of these features and be like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is paradigm changing. This is game changing. This is so awesome. And and usually it's purely nonsense and silliness. But I typically ignore it because it is just silliness and it always happens around, and even though it's like when you actually go in and actually look at the feature, it's kind of like, it's okay, or maybe there's some utility to it, or sometimes it's just flat out bad. But anyway, this stuff happens. It's the bandwagon effect, right? Everybody jumps on and they all love to get their little hearts and their little clappy hands and all of that on their posts, and everyone feels good about it. Not that I'm here to rain on everyone's parade, but yeah, I think a reasonable level of objectivity is sometimes beneficial. And so, yeah, I'm gonna rain on everybody's parade on this one. It's a great example is the accent color, the teal accent color that we got, and everybody's like, oh, this is so great for accessibility and this is that and everything, and it's like, no, it's not. The actual colorblind people in the community are like saying, no, this makes things worse. And anyone that's done any kind of research into like color palettes for color blindness knows that green is the number one like color to avoid. But no, we have this teal, which I think the real story behind that is like Microsoft internally had like a competition to like, hey, can anyone come up with a uglier color than this kind of dehydrated urine yellow that we have for Power BI today? That's right. I went there. Everyone's thinking it, so I'm just gonna flat out say that's the color that we have for that yellow. And it's like, can anybody come up with the uglier color that's not chartreuse? And then we got the teal, which let's all be honest, right? Teal has never been popular in anything other than 80s weddings, like ever. Everyone hates that color. So anyway, uh, on to talking about edit your data model in Power BI service. So this is a short blog article that Emily Lisa, senior product manager, released. It's pretty short, but we'll go through and I'll show you exactly how to turn this feature on and what it does, and I have some commentary in addition to that. So I'm in my Power BI test tenant here. I'm in a test workspace, which crazy enough is called test. And so to turn this on, we need to go to settings, and we need to go to advanced settings. And then if you scroll down and you wait for a second, there it pops up, data model settings. Users can edit data models in the Power BI service preview. So you got to check that, and save it. And then what you can do is you can say, let's go to this data set, and you can say open data model. You have this new option here. And this brings up the interface, right? And it says, and this is important, keep in mind your changes will be permanent and automatically saved. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But again, we can drag things around between things. We can see our data. So this is very much the modeling, tab with our window or interface that you have within Power BI Desktop. It's a complete, replication of this thing, right? You can even set things like display folders and stuff like that. And so, 100% kudos to the Microsoft team in terms of, they've shown an extraordinary ability to replicate the desktop interface within the service, right? We've seen this with the Power Query data flow, Power Query and data flows. We can see it here. But the first thing in terms of like people saying this is game changing and everything else is like, well, you do realize that this has been around for like a long time, like 6, 9 months now that we've had data marts, and it's got this exact interface dang near. I mean, other than they took the this panel, the data panel, and it's moved over here to the Explorer panel. It's on the left versus right. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. Even though game changing, paradigm shifting. You know, one of it gives like it's something they already had, right? I mean, this was the easy button, right? I mean, all they do is take this code and like, oh, we'll just apply it to data sets and poof, it's like how long did that really take to implement? It could have been that long. They already had the thing built. So I mean, so it's something that's been around for a while. But let's circle back to this comment about, the most inane comment that I saw out there, which was, "Oh, welcome to Power BI Macintosh users." It's just so crazy to me because, like, you do realize that Macintosh users have had the ability to run Power BI desktop like all the time and use Power BI this entire time, right? It's not like you can't run a virtual Windows VM on a Macintosh, or that a Macintosh can't use a VM sitting up in the cloud, right? I mean, of course it can do it, but even worse than that is that, okay, so I can edit the data model, all right? So I can edit the data model in the service, and that works on a Macintosh. Except, how do I get a data model into the Power BI service? Well, you can build data sets in Power BI service, but guess what your options are? Your options are an Excel file that's sitting on OneDrive, or a CSV file for sitting on OneDrive, or you can manually paste your data. For everything else, oh, don't see the sort of data source. Oh, download the desktop app. So it's a stupid comment. You can't, it doesn't matter. It's like, great, I can edit my data model without, being on a Mac, but I can't actually build the data model to put into the service on a Macintosh unless I'm running a Windows VM. So dumb comments that are out there. I just, can't fundamentally understand it. Now, I mean, thinking about this more, I think this almost does more harm than good. And I realize this is a preview feature, and it's a building block towards, what I was most likely, being able to replicate all of Power BI desktop's feature functionality, within the service, being able to build data sets. But it's like, this seems scary to me. I mean, in terms of, okay, so I publish my desktop file out into the workspace, and then other people can collaborate on building this data model, which I think the whole collaboration on data modeling and that sort of thing, and authoring, I think it sounds better on, talking about it than it actually is in real life. Because I guarantee you, okay, so I upload this desktop file. It's out in the workspace. Somebody's in here monkeying around with the thing. I don't know that, and so I re-upload my desktop file, and poof, all their changes are gone. Right? I mean, it's gonna happen. So this whole, and when you're talking about collaborative, like true collaboration, I mean, in between developers, it's a difficult problem to solve. I mean, that's why we have, GitHub and Visual Studio and all these things that have all these collaborative features to allow multiple developers to work on things and merge changes up and that sort of. This has none of that, right? I don't even know if you get an alert when somebody changes your data model in the service. So this thing as implemented, one, okay, they already had it. It's there. I am not a big fan of this in terms of there's too much missing around collaboration of data set development and reporting and that sort of stuff that is missing currently within the service, that I don't see coming anytime soon. And I don't know if you'll ever be able to replicate the full Power BI desktop experience in terms of like things like external tools, stuff like that, and that everybody uses a lot of those these days. Tabular editor, DAX Studio, those kinds of things. We have a whole yeah, I have a whole plethora of free and paid for by enterprise. If you're an enterprise DNA member, all these external tools that make a lot of things a lot easier. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to really replicate that in the service, or because at least not for free or pro users, in terms of, because you have to have the XMLA endpoint, I would imagine, to be able to make changes and things like that. So anyway, long story short, I really don't see much of use in this feature. Again, I think everyone talks about collaborative data model development. This is an easy win for the Power BI team. It's like, oh, just take something we already built and we'll slap it on, check the box. But in terms of actual usability in that, I just don't see it right now. And even, again, this is a preview feature and there's building block to more stuff and all that. But even again, unless there are some of these change controls and real source control type stuff that goes on, I don't see. I think it makes things worse, or it really doesn't fulfill the true promise of collaboration within modeling and report development and that sort of stuff. There's too many pitfalls without having a lot of those different controls and change control and source control in place. I just don't see it right now. So anyway, that was it for this article, or this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If not, leave a comment and tell me what you didn't like. I can probably guess. So anyway, everyone have a good day, and I'll see you next time.